right, so I wanted to show you this here. You saw me working on this. This is the base of a coffee table. Those are the legs there, and it fits on the bottom shelf. I was actually working away, and I thought I should catch some of this. So I turned the GoPro on and caught it. So what I did is I used a jigsaw to round these corners off, and this one as well, and then of course over here. And I did that because these live edges don't always match what you want to do. This one, for example, extended about 1/2 inch further out here on much more of a slant, and then it came out here, and then this one here came out, and then it went way out, quite a ways out. So I had to cut those off with the jigsaw. Then I take this angle grinder with a 40 grit sanding pad, which looks like I need to change out, and just took that and reshaped these as best I could to give them a little more of that live edge look to them. Of course, they're rounded off, but this one here, you can see it looks fairly natural here. I actually have to plane this down a little bit, take all of this extra epoxy off, and you could sand that down, but it would be flatter if I just hit it with the plane, set my plane right on top of the wood here, and just skimmed all that off. Make sure this is nice and flat, work down to these bow ties. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put that in the base here and let you see that. Okay, so this guy goes in either way, it doesn't really matter. So first what we're going to do is spread these out. Pretty tight, but... So now you can see originally this would have come out here more. So I've just rounded that off. Same thing, this would have come out here so that it kind of flows into the legs a little better. So that'll be the bottom shelf. Now this is with the first seal coat of epoxy. Now it's got some dust in it. It's got some air bubbles. You can see here it's very rough. This is because I got a little carried away with the heat. It kind of burned it a bit. So unfortunately that caused it to cure a little faster, I think, and we kind of lost it there. The end still needs a good wipe down with epoxy. It soaks it up really well, so you got to really do a good job of getting it in here. Got a little more in the corners. This doesn't feel too bad. It's a bit bubbly though, so that's going to have to be sanded down and redone. I think the mistake I made with this one was the epoxy I was using was fairly old. It was also cold, and when I stirred it, it was really too frothy, I think. Way too much air. And no matter what you were going to do, you're going to end up with air in it. So I got air bubbles, I could feel them. It didn't work good. But you can see this worked out nice. That's pretty smooth. We'll sand it again. One of the tricks to getting it to flow over the side better is to round those edges. And so these edges have been rounded with a quarter round, just barely touching it, and then sanding as well to get it over those edges. So definitely have to work out, get some more on these ends. They soaked up way more than anticipated, and that's okay. It's a seal coat. It gets sanded down. We'll just sand it down smooth with some 220 grit. I've got some areas that'll need to get filled with some wax, and we'll sand her down smooth, and then we'll pour it again. Okay, we got some roughed up surface. All right, so got the surface hit with some 220 grit, sanded down smooth. All of the air bubble holes where air was coming through, I filled with wax. We do a good cleaning with alcohol. It's pretty good now, but we'll do it again. And then I've got to cover the bench in plastic before I pour, so we're just about there. All right, 1 to 1 is the pour. You're gonna make a mess of that guy, and that's just the way it goes. Now, we start the pour. I go on the outside first, just kind of near the edge, and then I work through the middle. Can't tell you that's the best way to do it. It's just the way that I've done it. What I want to do is first I'm going to work it with the squeegee. Now if this is the final pour, you'd use a notched trowel, but since I'm doing this as another seal coat, I can just use the squeegee. Goes over the edge, that's fine. Because we're going to grab that on the edge and we're going to work it in. And you've got about 20 minutes to work it. And the main thing here is to try to get it so that it will flow right over the edge. Now I'm going to take this, scoop that off in my hand, and start to apply it along the edge. There should be some now flowing over the edge, so we want to try to catch it and rub it in. It's really important to take your hand and rub that into those edges. So set that squeegee aside, and I've got this extra bit in here, so I'm going to take that now with my hand, and I'm just going to grab some, work that in. Now I'm going to gently work those air bubbles out. I've got a little bit of time to do that. What you do not want to do, what I did last time, concentrate too much time in one location. We do not want to spend too much time in any one location because you can burn it. All right, so phase one is kind of complete. That's the coffee table top, as you can see here. Boy, for a seal coat, that's seriously nice stuff. Got some little bit of dust on it, but that's awesome.